If you're a beginner and you're just starting out your fitness journey, you might be wondering what the best cardio is for you to do in the gym. So thanks for joining me for this week's video podcast. We're going to talk all about cardio, what's going to be the best one for you, what's going to be the best one for your fat loss and overall fitness results, and we're going to have a really good discussion today. So go ahead, drop the video a like, and let's go ahead and jump right in. So the first thing that I wanted to touch on in regards to cardiovascular exercise is simply introducing what is cardio. So you hear this term, oh, I'm gonna go do some cardio, or I just finished doing my cardio, right? And if you're just starting out in the gym, you might be thinking, what in the world does that really mean? So let's look at this. So cardio in itself is actually a prefix. Cardio literally means heart. So that should be a first good indicator of, okay, so if I'm doing cardio, or at least trying to work cardio, I'm going to be working my heart. So when we use it in the context of the gym, usually when somebody says, I'm going to go do some cardio, we're talking about cardiovascular exercise. Of course, somebody isn't literally going to be, quote unquote, going and doing your heart, whatever that means. Doing cardio means literally doing exercise that targets your heart specifically. And something I do want to know when saying this is that inherently everything we do is targeting our heart. Just staying alive and breathing, our heart needs to be working. But this is actually going to be a specific exercise for the heart where it elevates your heart rate. It elevates it beyond kind of that normal threshold. Usually that normal threshold is going to be right around 80 beats per minute. 60 to 80 is kind of the reference range for resting heart rate. So anything above that would be technically, quote unquote, considered cardiovascular exercise. Usually cardiovascular exercise is a very low intensity form of activity that can be completed for a very long time. So let's look at the example of walking. So walking is something that is very low intensity for most individuals, and it can be completed for a very long time. Versus something like weights. If you go and lift some weights at the gym, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I can only do this for 1, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 times before I need to stop. That's because the demands that weight training puts on you is called anaerobic. Basically, it means you do that exercise without oxygen. And because of that, when you finish that exercise, your body needs a bunch of oxygen to actually recover and get it back up to par. When you do normal cardiovascular activity like a brisk walk, for example, your body's able to get all of the nutrients, all the oxygen to consistently do it long term just by the breathing and doing of the exercise. So that's kind of the difference between something like walking or just any other forms of cardio and doing something like weight training. Cardio you can do multiple times for a long time, and that's a good proxy. So some basic forms of cardio when we're thinking about it is running. That's a great one. Walking is another really good one. Swimming is a really good one too. If you're somebody who used to do like competitive swimming in high school or college, or maybe you're just an older adult and you're trying to find some forms of low impact activity, swimming is a really good one. I really like walking too. I'll go back on walking. Walking's great because you're able to do it basically at any capability level. And walking's also really good too because it's very functional. We do it numerous times through our daily lives. Biking is another really common example. This could be actually going out for a bike ride. This could be something as simple as doing a stationary bike, or they also have recumbent bikes where you're actually kind of sitting in a reclined position, and those are all different forms of barking. We're not bringing any dogs into the gym, I promise. Maybe you are. If you have I was actually at the gym the other day, and this guy had a service dog, and I was like kind of shocked at first, but then I noticed it was a service dog. Pretty neat though. It'd be fun to bring my dog to the gym. Long story short, biking, not barking. Biking is a really, really good form of physical activity when it comes to cardio, and also stair climbing. This is like one of those stair stepper things where it's basically a never-ending set of stairs, and you'll look at the kind of reoccurring theme with all these. All of these are highly repeatable movements. They're pretty low intensity, as in it doesn't take much energy to bike one pedal or step one stair, and can be completed for a long period of time. And that's what's going to elevate your heart rate and give you those good benefits of cardiovascular exercise. So cardio works, as we already described, the heart. But when we're doing cardiovascular exercise, we need to discuss the vascular part as well. So vasculature essentially is your veins, your capillaries, your arteries. That's all of the basically tissue inside your body that helps to transport the blood and oxygen and all the nutrients that we get in from our breath into our lungs, and then take it to the tissues that need that oxygen and nutrients for cardiovascular exercise or just living, as we discussed. So the cardio talks about the heart. That's your heart actually pumping the blood to the periphery, which is like your arms, legs, etc. And then it sends back some carbon dioxide, which gets sent to then your lungs. This is all kind of part of one big system. So when we're thinking about why in the world would I do cardio, cardio improves basically the ability to take oxygen from the air. It also improves the ability to get rid of CO2. And because of this, with these things, we get more stamina from it. So it's not just the ability to take a breath and take as much oxygen as quickly as we can, convert it to nutrients that our body can use. It's also getting rid of the waste product, and your body gets really, really efficient and can build more stamina over time by being able to do these two things. So that's kind of the big reason why somebody would do cardio, and kind of the general basics of it. So go ahead and give this video a like so far if it's giving you some value. And we're going to dive right into the next portion of this, talking about cardio and why cardio is honestly crucial for beginners in fitness routines. And probably one of the first things, and this is kind of a duh thing, is the improved fitness aspect of it. A lot of individuals, when they start in the gym, maybe they're a little overweight, maybe they just haven't worked out in a while, and they're feeling kind of run down, they're lacking energy, and they just want to feel better. So improved fitness is a really great reason to do cardio. In turn with this, you'll also kind of have longer endurance. That's kind of something that goes in tandem with it. So you're going to be able to do activities of daily living much longer. Maybe you can go out for a hike with your friends and you're able to do it tremendously longer than normal. You can play with your kids longer than normal. All of these things kind of go back to that improved fitness aspect. You can also recover better. And we're going to use this in the context of a workout, but during your workout, if you have good cardiovascular health, you're actually able to recover quicker in between sets of weights, or even just sets of maybe like a sprint, like a running sprint, for example. You're able to recover quicker. You're also able to recover quicker between workouts as well. So if you have a good cardiovascular base and you finish a workout, for example, and then tomorrow you know you're going to work out again, you're going to recover much quicker compared to somebody who doesn't have that good cardiovascular base. Also, another great reason, of course, since we're improving our fitness and our ability to have improved endurance and stamina, we're going to feel better throughout the day. And this goes back kind of in tandem with those activities of daily living. Another great reason that I love cardio for beginners is that it is incredibly easy to do. if you are a beginner and you're just starting out in the gym, you likely don't have a huge amount of confidence. You likely don't have a huge amount of self-efficacy. And a lot of individuals, when they're first starting out in the gym, are incredibly overwhelmed. I see this weight machine. I see that weight machine. There's all these different things. There's people who look super, super fit and ultimately are super, super fit. And you're constantly comparing yourself to those people. Cardio is great because especially on these different machines, like a treadmill, like a bike, like a stair stepper, there's not really much learning curve to it. So you get on the treadmill, you burn some calories, you feel better, you get a nice good sweat on, and over time, this can build a lot of confidence in individuals. If you're just starting out in the gym and all you can do is go on the treadmill because that's the only thing you know how to do, that's great because it's getting you in the door. You can then start learning about other machines in the gym. Maybe you'll make some friends, and it can act as a way to really boost and improve your confidence to hopefully get you to be able to do other activities in the gym. So go ahead and give this video a like if you think that's a good reason to do some cardiovascular exercise. Another great reason all beginners should do cardio exercise is that it offers variety in your workout routine. So I want to pose this question for you. Why do most individuals quit a workout routine or a fitness routine when they first start out? There's a lot of them, but one of the biggest ones is boredom. You hate doing the same thing every single day when you go into the gym. And there's no challenge. You can't constantly progress very well, and it just kind of leaves you in this limbo position of being like, why am I doing this? What's the point of doing this? It's boring. There's no fun. And because of this boredom factor, a lot of individuals can't adhere to a long-term cardiovascular exercise program, or a long-term fitness program, I should say, if it's just one exercise. If you go into the gym and you know that the rest of your life, all you're literally going to do is just go on the treadmill, how long are you going to do it? Probably not very long at all. So that's an important thing to make. It offers some good variety that many individuals ultimately need when you are doing a workout routine. I know for myself over the years, I have pivoted workout routines so many times simply because I get bored sometimes. I get bored a lot, actually. And when you kind of go over this notion that, oh, you need to be hardcore and just do the same thing, although there is some validity to that because you do want to stay consistent enough to get results and see results, if it's coming at the expense of your skipping workouts because you're so bored, throw in some cardio. It offers a little bit of routine, and it's good to switch things up and get better at different aspects of fitness. And of course, what everyone also usually comes to cardio for is some good fat loss. Now, there is one major red flag I do want to act as a distinction here when we're talking about fat loss and cardio. Now, cardio in itself burns calories. And if you burn enough calories from cardio that it puts you in a calorie deficit, you will then in turn lose fat. If you are not in a calorie deficit but you're still doing cardio, you will not lose fat. So cardio in itself does not always mean fat loss, and that's something I really, really want to drive home with you. So for example, if somebody burns 2,500 calories per day and they are eating about 2,500 calories per day and they want to lose some weight, maybe they'll start implementing 500 calories of cardio per day as a way to get them down to 2,000 calories of energy that will bring them down to 2,000 calories of overall energy that they are technically intaking. So they're burning, 500 calories. And because of that, they're in a 500 calorie deficit. So over time, guess what? They're going to be able to lose some weight. They're going to be able to lose some fat. Comparatively, if somebody was doing cardio, but they need to eat 2,500 calories per day to maintain their weight, and they're eating 3,500 calories, and the cardio that they're doing is only bringing them back down to 3,000 calories, they're eating 500 more calories per day. They're going to gain some weight. And this applies to literally every human being. You can't really defy the laws of physics. This is thermodynamics, so energy in, energy out. Cardio is a great tool to use for fat loss, but it does not always equal fat loss. So those are a few reasons why cardio is crucial for beginners. So after that, we can then kind of look at what an ideal cardio workout might actually be for a beginner. Now, something that I say time and time again is that adherence is by far one of the most important determinants when it comes to any exercise program, any nutrition program, or anything involved in fitness. If you don't like it, or if you don't stick with it, guess what's going to happen? You are not going to reap the benefits. You are not going to reap the results of basically the whole reason why we do exercise. The people who are consistent, that's redundant, of course. The people who are the most consistent when it comes to any exercise routine, even if it means maybe you're only working out twice a week or 3 times a week, that person is going to win out if they are consistent and do it over a long period of time versus somebody who's maybe working out 5 days a week. But they can't adhere to that. And in a month, in 2 months, they end up falling completely off of it. You can clearly see who's going to win. So when you're talking about a cardio program that's ideal for beginners, that's one of the most important things I want to drive home is to pick something you like. Don't pick something you hate. So many times individuals that I work with will say, I just started running. Why'd you just start running? Oh yeah, one of my friends did that for some fat loss. It worked great for him. Do you like running? No, not really, but I do want to lose some weight. Okay, so you're going to do something you hate to lose some weight for a very short amount of time, and then what happens after you lose the weight? Do you keep running? No, because you hate it. And then guess what? You gain all the weight back. Pick something you like. That's going to be super, super crucial. Another thing to remind yourself are, what are your goals? Are you trying to run a 5K and optimize your overall running and speed? Or are you just trying to feel better? This is going to really dictate which cardiovascular exercise you can do because that really matters. For somebody who's trying to get the most out of their workouts and maybe you're trying to be very specific and I'm trying to run a 5K to get better at running, you're going to need to do that running. You're going to need to do that specific activity. If you're trying to do a triathlon and you're not a huge fan of swimming, but in a triathlon you actually need to do swimming in addition to biking, in addition to running as part of the triathlon, you're going to need to do all those forms of cardio. And I'm not saying you need to do triathlon. That's just kind of an example talking about specificity. If you are just trying to feel better, you can literally do any type of cardiovascular exercise. They're all going to give good benefits, and I would actually highly recommend to literally do all of them. Maybe some biking, some walking, running, swimming, rowing machine, stair stepper, some jump rope, hiking. All those are good activities. And when you have that at your disposal because you're just trying to feel better, most people are just trying to feel better, you open yourself up to so many different forms of physical activity. And that's, at the end of the day, the name of the game. Finding something you like, finding something you can adhere to for a long period of time. Another thing I do want to bring up when talking about an ideal cardio workout for beginners is simply having pain or discomfort in your body. So if you're somebody who has a lot of joint issues, you might want to lean on something that's more low impact. We mentioned a few of them already, but biking, swimming, rowing, recumbent bike, so that sit back bike might be a good idea. If you are somebody who has a lot of joint issues, running, maybe even walking might be a little aggravating to first start. And ideally, you would get to a point where hopefully you could do some of these activities someday. But when you're first starting out and you're just trying to get into the gym, get in some good cardio, don't really stress over this. Know it might be a goal one day to hopefully run without pain. But if all you can do right now is a bike ride, that's great. Stick to it. Get some good cardio in. Get a good sweat in. Get some endorphins. Feel good. So we've addressed we need to pick something we enjoy. And likely we need to pick something, if we're starting out and there's joint pain, picking something that's low impact. And we just discussed a few of those. And then as a baseline, this is again just a ballpark guideline, trying to get about 150 minutes of activity a week. And that's a simple baseline. And of course, the more you do, the more benefits this will be. So this isn't saying that you should just do 150 minutes of brisk walking or 150 minutes of jogging and then that's it. Nope, I'm not doing any more. I'm not doing 1 minute over. I hit 150 minutes. That's great. If you do hit that, that's awesome. I actually applaud you, but you can get much more benefits for reducing the risk of chronic disease and also keeping a lot of your independence and bodily strength if you do more. Of course, there is a tipping point where more isn't going to be better, but for most individuals starting out in the gym, you're coming from a background of usually being pretty sedentary and not doing a lot of physical activity. So just using this idea that more is probably going to be better is a good metric. You don't have to cut yourself off. So we just discussed some low impact activities, and I wanted to look at a few more low impact exercises for beginners and give kind of some pros and cons of each specific one. So one of my favorite cardiovascular exercises that is low impact is a rowing machine. Now, a rowing machine is great for a few examples. One of the first ones being is that it is actually a full body exercise. So if you're not familiar with the rowing machine, I actually have some videos on my channel that you could go check out that will tell you how to use a rowing machine properly and how you can use one with limited mobility. But the rowing machine is full body and it works your arms, it works your legs, and it also even works your core a little bit. So that's one of the things I really like about the rowing machine when it comes to a low impact form of exercise. And since it is a full body exercise, it burns a lot of calories. And when you're trying to lose weight, if you're able to burn more calories per day than you eat or take in, you are going to 100% lose some body fat and lose some weight. One of the things that I don't like about rowing though is that it is very hard to multitask. And when I'm doing cardio, I usually like to try to find forms of cardio that I'm able to multitask in. So for example, multitasking would be being able to actually pick up the phone and talk to somebody, or scroll on social media and post some stuff on, fitness tips, right? Maybe I'm able to even watch some Netflix or something, and you can do that on a rowing machine. But the point of this is that since it uses a handle, it's not completely hands-free. So if you're somebody who likes to multitask during exercise, it might be something to consider for yourself. Swimming is another really great low impact form of activity, and especially for older adults and seniors that I work with, they really, really like using swimming because it kind of can help to ease some of that arthritis pain. And there's actually some specific pools designed. So if you're in an area that has a lot of different gyms, see if there's a heated pool. And if you're somebody with chronic pain and arthritis, those heated pools can give some really good relief. Plus, you can, of course, get some good cardiovascular exercise and activity when you go to those pools. And you could just do normal lap swimming as well. The big problem with swimming, though, is that it's really hard to access. And for a lot of individuals, you might not have a gym that actually has a pool. And if you do have a gym that has a pool, it might be an extra cost. And you might not be somebody who wants to spend an extra cost at a gym for simply getting a pool for yourself. So that's something to consider as well. Also, there is kind of some fear associated with swimming. I used to be afraid of swimming for the longest time. I can swim good enough now, basically to save my life. But when I was a young kid, I was very bad at swimming. And because of that, I didn't swim. I was scared to. I was scared I was going to drown. I think that's a valid excuse for a lot of beginners when they're first starting out. If you have never swum before, it can be kind of scary and daunting. Also, it's difficult to perform, and this is a good thing and a bad thing. The good reason that this is difficult to perform is because the more inefficient you are during an exercise, the more calories you're going to burn. So that's kind of a neat thing if you think about it. When you are doing a movement, if you're very efficient, like somebody who can run really, really well, they're going to burn less calories when they do that activity because they're more efficient. So if you swim and you suck at it and you're flaunting around in the pool, you're going to burn a lot more calories, which can potentially lead to some more weight loss compared to somebody who doesn't. The bad thing about this, the bad thing about swimming, I should say, and the fact that it's difficult to perform is that not many people do it because of that exact reason. As I just discussed kind of with the fear aspect, I didn't want to swim because I sucked at it. And a big part of picking cardio exercise that you enjoy is picking something that you're good at as well. Because if you're good at it, you're going to stick with it long term and you're going to get those good cardiovascular benefits. So if this is giving you some good ideas, please go ahead and give the video a like so far. And we'll keep moving on. So the step aerobics is another really, really good exercise routine that will improve your cardiovascular exercise tremendously. And this is really great because you can add in some group classes, which for a lot of people, they will be able to meet some friends. The music will kind of give you some extra motivation and make you feel really in the groove. And it's one of the lowest barrier things, I think, for some individuals, because you literally go in, they tell you exactly what to do. You're literally just shadowing somebody in the class, and you can kind of just chill out at the back of the class, not really think much about it, and just get your workout in, get out. My mom does some of these types of classes, and she really likes them because she meets some friends, she gets out and socializes, she of course gets a good workout in, and they're usually pretty quick, usually about 30 minutes, sometimes an hour if they're longer, but lots of good variations. The tough part of step aerobics is some gyms don't actually have step aerobics classes, but the good thing is that there are some online variations of step aerobics classes. I don't have many of these on my channel. I do have some low impact exercise programs and routines on my channel, though. You can go find those in the playlist on my channel. But moving on to the next one, stationary bike and recumbent bike. I kind of have these two toggled right next to each other. They're very similar exercises. So stationary bike is extremely easy to do. You just get on it, you start pedaling. One of the bad things about it is that it only uses legs, though. So you're not going to be burning as much calories as if you're doing something full body with arms and legs. But if you're somebody with an arm injury, for example, maybe you just had rotator cuff tear, or you just have like a bum shoulder or a bum elbow that doesn't really work that well, the stationary bike can be a great way to kind of still get some good cardio and get some good exercise in, but you're isolating your arm completely and it's not getting any work at all. So it brings you some good exercise without hurting yourself anymore. And another thing about this too, and this goes in line with the recumbent bike, is that they're both kind of boring. It's, you know, you're just pedaling, and since they just stay in the same place, maybe you're lucky and you have a TV, that's a great option. Maybe you get your phone and you watch some Netflix, that's a great option to make it less boring. Some people don't have this and they're literally just staring at a wall or staring at their monitor, watching how many calories are burning. That's tough to do long term and could potentially be a downside to doing a stationary bicycle. A recumbent bicycle, one of the other things I do want to mention on it is that since you are reclined, you're not going to be working your core quite as much. So you're going to be getting a little less muscle activation compared to if you're on a stationary bike. So if you're trying to get the most bang for your buck, trying to get the most holistically strong body and work your core a little bit as well, you're probably going to be wanting to lean towards that stationary bike because it's going to work your core just a tiny bit. If you're somebody who's actually biking out in public, that's probably going to give you the most benefit because you're actually going to be practicing your balance capabilities. The only downside to actually biking outside is that hills are not accounted for, as in you can go down a hill and guess how much energy you are using when you're going down a hill? None. But on the flip side, when you go up a hill, you're using an incredible amount of energy. It's very, very tough to do. When you're on a recumbent bike or stationary bike, it's basically smooth sailing all the way through, unless of course you throw in some different types of exercise. Or I should say intervals or hills or etc. The elliptical is another great option. Usually most of the time you do need gym access for the elliptical. This one does use your arms and legs. One of the downsides, there's a couple actually downsides, it doesn't really burn a lot of calories. Since it's extremely low impact and a very fluid motion, it just doesn't seem to burn quite as much energy. It doesn't take as much oomph to actually do the movement, which can be good for some people, especially if they're first starting out. The other thing about it is that it's a very unnatural movement. So if you've ever gotten an elliptical and maybe you're a little shorter, maybe you're a little taller, and you start cranking on it and you're like, oh my gosh, like these arms are way out of place, or like I can't even reach my legs over into the holster, right? That's kind of a concern that a lot of people deal with when they're looking at an elliptical. It's a very unnatural movement. Walking, probably one of my favorite forms of cardiovascular low impact exercise for beginners, is great because it's free, incredibly easy to do. You can scale it in a bunch of different ways, and what I mean by this is you could add a backpack onto your back. You could start walking a little bit, and guess what? You're going to now be doing more work than if you were just doing a normal walk without the backpack. You can do an incline walk on a treadmill. That makes it much harder. You can do an incline walk outside. If you're feeling like you just want to go for a casual walk, you can just do a very light walk one day. It's highly functional. You do this activity throughout your daily life numerous times, and you can make it into a good cardio exercise too, where you get your heart rate up if you get a little bit quicker, or maybe add some weight or an incline. Lots of great options. Last but not least is, of course, a weight circuit. This is where you pick a bunch of light weights with no rest on specific exercises, and basically when we do this, we combine weights and cardio. So for an example, you might do like a goblet squat where you're holding a dumbbell at your chest. You do a goblet squat for 10 repetitions. Then you're going to go do some body weight rows on one of those rowing TRX cables. Then maybe you're going to do some box jumps, and you just do this in a circuit for 15 minutes. You're not resting in between, and guess what? At the end of that, you're getting in some good muscular work. You're getting in some cardio because your heart rate's going to be elevated the whole time. Really good bang for your buck, extremely low impact as well. And that's the other great thing about that one, is it's a huge time saver if you are restricted on time and don't have a lot of other basically time for exercise. So give this video a like if that gave you some good ideas for your exercise. So let's look at some tips now for progressing in your cardiovascular exercise routine. So if you're a beginner, you're probably thinking, okay, I want to progress, but I want to do it safely. I don't want to injure myself, and I want to do it in a way that's smart. And I think the first thing that I should note is to be honest where you're currently at. In high school, maybe you were somebody who did lots of cross country, you raced a lot, or maybe you were like a competitive biker, and you haven't worked out for the last 20 years. And now you're a 40-year-old parent, you're just trying to get back into it to get healthy for your family, feel better at work. You need to be honest with yourself and the fact that you're not where you used to be. And that's okay. We're going to slowly get into this. We're going to build up over time. And we might never fully get back to where we were completely when we were a high school athlete, for example. But we can get pretty darn close. as long as we're progressing in a safe and smart way. The biggest thing here is to just realize you're not going to get it back overnight. You're not going to get it back in even a year. It's going to take some time. So we need to be honest with where we are currently at as an individual. And then we can also look at the different recovery costs of certain exercises. So certain exercises that need higher recovery are ones that are sprinting based or sport based, where it's going to get your heart rate up really, really high, tax your central nervous system. That's going to take more to recover from. You're going to need more days of not doing exercise or that type of activity to get back to that baseline. Running is another great example. Also, if you're somebody who's just doing a large amount of work, maybe you're walking, or maybe you're doing a light walk every day, but you're doing like 3 hours of light walking every day, that's going to come at a huge recovery cost that you need to take into consideration when you are trying to progress in maybe an other aspect of fitness. You're trying to get better at biking, for example. Lower recovery modalities would be biking or walking. Usually stuff that we would consider as kind of lower impact, so maybe like a stair stepper. If you're not burning a huge amount of calories and you're just doing like maybe 20 to 30 minutes of some moderate cardio every single day where your heart rate's up, it feels a little tough, but you're not killing yourself, you don't really need to stress too much about this. You're going to be recovering okay, assuming that your nutrition is good, which that might be a big assumption for some people. Make sure your nutrition is on point. I always like using RPE in the beginning. So this is basically the rate of perceived exhaustion. And we can shoot for about a 1 to 10 scale. So 1 being the easiest exercise we've ever done, 10 being incredibly difficult. When we are doing cardiovascular exercise, I usually recommend for people to do about a 5 to 6 difficulty in the beginning when they're first starting out. And then we can kind of ramp up over time. But this is usually a really good starting point because not a lot of people know what their heart rate is and what it should be and et cetera, et cetera. So you can just say, hey, I'm just going to do a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10. And I'm going to go out for a light jog. And once I feel like I'm into a 7, I'm going to peel back a little bit and tone down. Really, really good and easy way to progress. We can also just focus on hitting the recommended guidelines as a starting point. So this is basically 150 minutes of moderate activity per week. Moderate activity is usually a light brisk walk, maybe a really light bike ride. Maybe you're just kind of gardening out in your garden. Where else would you garden? You're going to do some planting, some light activity, and you're going to build up over time. The higher the impact activity, the less you can get away with. So if you're doing some of those sports or you're doing some vigorous running, you might only need to do 75 minutes to get kind of that minimum recommendation. These minimum recommendations are guidelines based off the American College of Sports Medicine and something that we can base off of as a springboard down the road to get further physical activity. Another thing to mention when looking at this is just to simply progress slowly. A good rule of thumb is to do 10% of duration extra in the following week. So if you start out today and you are running maybe 10 minutes, you're doing a 10-minute jog on Monday, 10-minute jog on Friday. Next week, 10%, that's only 1 minute more. You're going to do an 11-minute jog on Monday, 11-minute jog on Friday. This is, of course, going to build exponentially, but you're going to do it very, very slowly. And that's the biggest thing. We're trying to get our connective tissue to build up, as this takes a longer time to recover and get stronger compared to your cardiovascular system, which can actually get pretty strong and pretty fit very, very quickly. So that's usually why a lot of people don't progress safely and actually injure themselves, is their connective tissue, their knees, their joints, their ankles, all these things get hurt from all these overuse injuries because they go way too far and do it way too quick. 10% a week will give you a good starting off baseline. And then if you're feeling beat up, don't stress, back off a little bit. Take 10% off. And then, following the subsequent week, you can maybe go back up to 5% and then 10% and just build yourself up. This is a really long game, and that's how you want to look at it as. We're not trying to do this for 1 day or 1 week. We're trying to do this for a very long portion of time because that's where you're going to get the best overarching results from cardiovascular activity. Like this video if you're getting some value from it so far. On top of that, one of the things we just discussed on was exercise intensity. And you might be thinking, what should my heart rate be when I'm doing cardiovascular exercise? So we need to look at a few things first. The first thing is we need to look at what our maximum heart rate is. And the equation I like to use for this is called the Tanaka equation. This is essentially where you take 208 and minus it by 0.7 times your age. So for myself, I'm 25. If we use the Tanaka equation for that, it's going to give me about 190.5 beats per minute as my maximum heart rate. I will say this is an estimate. To find your true max heart rate, you would need to get a graded exercise test done in a lab, or just have a heart rate monitor worked up to you and have somebody push you to the brink. That's going to give you that complete max heart rate. Once you have that though, and again, since it's just an estimate, this is what we're working off of, you will then be able to kind of apply this to your different heart rate zones. So also too, I want to talk about how we actually measure those heart rate zones. So how do we measure our heart rate in general? So we need to be at a specific cardio level for about 3 minutes. 3 minutes before we can actually take a steady state heart rate from our body. And then we need to palpate. It's called your carotid artery. So it's usually right about like here on me. Sometimes it's a little bit lower in some individuals. Basically, there's this artery that pumps blood to you, and this is usually where a lot of individuals take their heart rate from. And you can also do it on your brachial artery, so I'll kind of show you the best I can on here. That's going to be on your wrist. I should make a video on this too, but those are two very common areas to take your heart rate. So basically, once you get to that 3 minutes of cardiovascular activities at a steady state, you are then going to set a timer for 15 seconds, palpate your carotid artery or your brachial artery for 15 seconds, and then based off that number, you're going to get probably like 15 to 30, a number between 15 and 30. That's your 15-second beats per minute. So you're going to multiply that by 4 then to then find how many beats per minute you're doing. So if you take your heart rate on your carotid artery and you get 30 beats per minute in a 15-minute segment, you're going to multiply that by 4. 120 beats per minute. Boom. So now you're thinking, okay, but that's a percentage, that's a percentage of my max heart rate. So for me, 120 beats per minute is a percentage of 190.5 beats per minute. And basically, now we're going to kind of look at the different heart rate zones. For most individuals, we're trying to do zone 1 to zone 2 in cardio about 15 to 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. That's a good starting point. So you're going to take your maximum heart rate, and then you are going to multiply it by that percentage, and that's going to give you roughly what your heart rate should be. So you're going to multiply it by 50% to 70%, and that's going to give you that heart rate range for your zone 1 to zone 2 cardio. And just know you're trying to roughly hit those numbers 2 to 3 times a week. On top of that, zone 4 to 5, this is going to be that higher intensity exercise. I usually try to do this at least in 10-minute intervals, which would basically be like maybe 30 seconds. I would go as hard as I can, rest for a minute or two, and then repeat that a few times. That zone 4 to 5 cardio, which is going to be 80% of your heart rate max to 100% of your heart rate max, only about 1 to 2 times a week. This takes a lot to recover from, and you're going to need to build up to that over time. So I would start on kind of the lower numbers, but basically know you're finding your max heart rate, and then once you find your max heart rate, you're multiplying it by the zone you're trying to hit, either zone 1 or zone 2 roughly, so 50 to 70% of your max heart rate, or about 80 to 100% of your max heart rate in the zone 4 to 5 cardio. And then you're actually measuring your heart rate during your exercise. So the 15 seconds, multiply that by 4, you'll see if you're in your heart rate zone. Go ahead and give this video a like if that introduced you to something that was helpful and provided you some value. Another topic that we need to discuss that always gets brought up to me is, how in the world can I balance cardio strength and flexibility workouts? I want to do them all and I don't have that much time. And what are the best next steps? Well, to balance cardio strength and flexibility workouts, I want you to consider one thing first. What in the world are your priorities? Do you want to get better at running? Do you want to get stronger? Do you want to be a little more flexible? What's going to be the most important thing for you in your daily life? And once you find your priority of either cardio, weights, or flexibility, it makes the answer really, really easy on how do you balance them all. Because you're going to be giving the most amount of time and attention to the one that you want to do the most. So let's give an example of somebody who has 1 hour in the gym. If we're filling most of our time with our highest priority, and maybe right now weights and being stronger is our highest priority, let's say we give 30 minutes to weights. That's great. We still have 30 more minutes then after that to do some cardio and flexibility. You kind of tiered on your next point of the list. Cardio is a little more important to me right now than flexibility. So I'm going to do 20 minutes of cardio. Again, these are all arbitrary numbers. I'm kind of just coming up with them. You could do 40 minutes of weights and then do 10 minutes of cardio and then 10 minutes of flexibility. But you're basically tiering what your priorities are and basing off of that, because at the end of the day, your goals are the most important thing in the gym, and it wouldn't make much sense to have a goal of trying to get stronger and then spending 45 minutes on cardio and then only 15 minutes on weights. It just doesn't make sense. So let your goals guide you, let them persuade you on how you balance it overall. There is some good news when it comes to doing all of these activities together. There is a little confliction between weights and cardio. A lot of the research nowadays shows that unless you're doing very high intensity amounts of physical activity and cardiovascular exercise, there isn't really going to be any detriments overall to your muscle mass and strength mass. So that's some great news. If the cardio does become too intense where you are burning such a high amount of calories or you can't recover well, or if the workload is so high that you can't recover just because your central nervous system is zapped, then that is going to come at a cost for building muscle and potentially other aspects of your life too. You might be more irritable and tired and not be able to function quite as well in your day-to-day life. Another great news is that you can combine weights and cardio pretty easily through circuit training. This is one of my favorite hacks to get my workouts quicker. I'll pair maybe some jogging with some squats. I'm doing cardiovascular exercise with some strength exercise. You can do them at the same time. Again, this isn't going to optimize strength or optimize your cardiovascular system, but for a lot of individuals who are just trying to remain fit and healthy and feel the best in their daily lives, this is going to really shave off some time in your workouts. And the good news is that they work very well together. Another point of good news is that it takes very, very little amount of stimulus to actually maintain your gains. So if you're in a position where you want to get stronger, but you also really, really, really want to improve your cardiovascular system, you want to improve your ability to run really far or to do some sprints on a bike really heavy, you can put your weights on the back burner. You can just go to a basically maintenance weight where you're not really pushing yourself too hard, but it's not too easy. You're not actually pushing yourself to get better in the weights, and then really focus on the cardio at that time. You're likely going to maintain all your strength and you're going to slightly improve your cardio as well. So that's kind of a good thing. If you just want to put one on the back burner for the most part, it takes very little to overall maintain it. Smash the like button if you're getting some value and learning something new from this video. One other thing I do want to mention too when it comes to flexibility training is that flexibility training can directly affect your cardio and weight sessions. So dynamic stretching is good. This is like doing a light warm-up where you're doing some high knees, you're doing some lunge and reaches. That's what we would consider a dynamic warm-up. Static stretching, where you're sitting down and stretching a muscle, or maybe doing an arm across your chest stretch, right, before you do some bench press. That can actually be a detriment towards your overall muscle growth and performance. It's not really going to put you at a risk of injury, but you're really cutting yourself short on what you can actually get out of the gym if you do that static stretching beforehand. So what I want to come as an overarching thing for all of this is to just make sure you do your flexibility training last, because that is going to be the most important thing, because you're trying to get better at your cardio and weights. Do flexibility training last, because that can take away from those two aspects of fitness. So another huge issue with cardio that a lot of people will talk to me about is it is so boring. So how in the world do I stay motivated to do it? Now, this goes back to this idea of wanting to pick some cardio that we enjoy. We should never, ever pick any type of cardio, or honestly exercise in general, for the most part, that we don't enjoy at least a little bit. We can look at this idea of effectiveness versus enjoyment. There may be some exercise that's more effective. Let's say running, for example. Somebody is running for weight loss, and you maybe notice your friend, oh, hey, yeah, they lost a lot of weight running. I'm going to do that. But you hate running. So are you going to stick with it for a long period of time? Probably not. So because of this, you are now kind of coming at a point of doing something more effective, but you don't enjoy it. And since you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it for a long time. Long-term results and long-term fat loss and health results from cardiovascular exercise only comes with those who are consistent. Only comes with those who are consistent. So you need to pick something you enjoy and can be at least somewhat consistent with. Otherwise, you're going to dump it off and just not do it. I love picking exercise forms that I can multitask with. Stuff that I can watch TV, I can do some phone calls, I can do social media, scroll on social media, or text back some friends. This would be something like walking, stationary biking is great, stair stepper is great. Rowing machine I love, but you can't really multitask quite as well. You can watch TV, but you can't use your phone as much. That's a really, really simple hack to make exercise, specifically cardiovascular exercise, much boring. Have an activity to do while you're doing your exercise. I will always have something to do if I'm going to do a long bout of cardio. Usually I'll actually edit some videos on my phone or reply to emails. I'll call somebody. I have a TV actually in my home gym too that's pointed right in front of my treadmill and stationary bike, so I can watch some podcasts, I can listen to some different YouTube videos, or I can even watch Netflix too. And that will kill a lot of time, make it go very, very quickly. So pick things that you can multitask with. Make it different too, switch it up. So this could be something as simple as, today I wanted to go out for a 10-minute run, but that just sounds boring. So instead I'm gonna do a 3-minute jog, a 3-minute walk, 2-minute jog, and then I'm going to run as fast as I can for 1 minute. And then maybe I'm gonna repeat this a couple times and then finish with 5 minutes at a medium jog. Make it different, make it engaging. This is actually called a fartlek workout. It's basically where you just decide whatever, whenever, and you just simply do the workout kind of as is. I like fartlek workouts a lot because some days I want to go hard for only 3 minutes, and then the rest of the time I want to go easy. Some days I really want to crank it and go super, super hard. So if this has given you some good ideas to make cardio less boring, please give the video a like. And then another way that I love to make cardio less boring is simply combining weights and cardio. And the way that you can do this is through circuit training. So for example, you can pick an exercise like squats, maybe some box jumps or some step ups, and then some pull-ups. And what you do is you do all the exercises all together. So you do squats, no rest, go right into box jumps, no rest, go right into pull-ups, no rest, and then you keep completing that exercise. This will raise your heart rate tremendously. In addition to that, you're also getting that good resistance training work. So you're building your muscles, you're building your strength, you're building your bone density, you're getting everything stronger in your entire body, but you're also getting your heart rate up too. So it kills two birds with one stone. It makes it less boring. I think it's so much more engaging that way. And guess what? You're saving time. You're saving time. So combining weights and cardio with those types of circuit training. If you've ever heard of CrossFit, this is kind of goes along the same lines. It's the exact same thing. It's basically circuit training. Circuit training is a really, really good way to make cardio less boring. And then also remember your goals. If you're somebody who's just trying to get into fitness and health for, just health, then guess what? You don't really need to stress about what cardio you do. If you're somebody who's a competitive runner or a biker and that's what you're trying to do is get really, really good at biking and running, you're probably going to need to stick with it even if you don't like it. But for most individuals who are just trying to get a little bit healthier, feel a little bit better in life, you can pretty much do any exercise and you will get some benefit from it. So don't really stress on it. Don't really think, oh, I need to do running or I need to do biking, I need to do rowing. You can literally do anything. Anything will give you some good benefit. Don't overthink it. Just get started and don't beat yourself up if you miss a single day. That happens to so many individuals. They will miss one day of cardio and think, oh, it's all wasted. It's all wasted. I'm just going to quit. That's the last thing I want you to do. And what I do want you to do instead, find some cardio you enjoy, do some of these good tips to make it less boring, stick with it for long term, and you will get the benefits, results, and you will feel so much better in your daily life. And one of the last things I wanted to touch on, because this is a extremely popular question, is what is the best cardio to burn the fat off of your belly as fast as possible? So let's dive into this. Go ahead and give the video a like. Let's talk about how we lose fat to begin with. So we lose fat by being in a calorie deficit. Being in a calorie deficit simply means that you are taking in or eating less calories per day than you burn. So let's look at somebody who burns 2,500 calories per day. If that person eats 2,000 calories a day, will they lose weight? Yes, because they are eating now 500 less calories per day than they burn. They're burning 2,500 calories, they're eating 2,000. Where does that extra 500 calories come from that we need to use to actually fuel our body? It's coming from body fat. But there is a huge distinction here. You might be thinking, okay, so I can just, do cardio, get that 500 calories. Well, if you're not in a calorie deficit, cardio will not burn fat. Cardio burns calories. Cardio burns calories usually from the stored glucose in our muscles, which is called glycogen. Also stored glucose from our liver, also called glycogen. So it can burn calories from there. It can also burn stored fat. It can also burn fat from our dietary fat and from our carbs that are in our bloodstream as well. So that's a lot of different ways that we can actually burn calories. And cardio can help to get us to a calorie deficit, which can, of course, lead to weight loss. But if you are, let's use the 2,500 calorie example again, if you are burning 2,500 calories, but you are still over consuming, say you're eating 3,000 calories a day and you're doing some cardio and you're gaining some weight, you're thinking, I'm doing cardio, what's going on? Well, the cardio is not burning your fat because you're overeating on how many calories you need per day to maintain your weight. You can find your calorie calculator online. There's NIH body weight planner is the one I like to use, and you can find what your daily calorie allocation should be per day. But just realize that cardio doesn't always lead to fat loss. And in fact, you don't need to do cardio at all to lose fat. You don't need to do any exercise. If you're eating less calories per day than you burn, you are going to lose weight. I would never recommend that because, of course, there's a lot of good health benefits from doing cardiovascular exercise, and doing cardiovascular exercise will allow you to eat more, which will make the dieting more pleasant. But you could sit in bed, do nothing, and just eat less calories, and you're going to lose weight. You're going to lose a lot of muscle too. So make sure you do some cardio and weight training. When we're talking about the best calorie burners, though, for cardio in general and losing some body weight, running is going to be the top one. You burn a lot of calories when you're running. Rowing and swimming are also really good. Those are full body, so you're using your arms and legs. You're going to be burning a lot of calories from that. Swimming in particular can burn a lot of calories because a lot of people are bad at swimming And if you're not as efficient or not as good at a form of cardio or specific exercise, it actually takes you more calories to burn when you do that exercise compared to if you were Michael Phelps, for example, and a really good swimmer. He's more efficient, so he's going to take less energy to actually do that form of physical activity. So something to consider: if you're not as good at something, you're going to burn more calories. Stair stepper is a calorie torture. If you have one of those stair stepper elliptical things where it just keeps going up as a never-ending cycle of stairs, that's a really, really good form of cardiovascular activity that I really like. That one's a good one to actually put on a weight vest too. Really simple way to make cardiovascular exercise burn more calories and hopefully burn more fat. You can add some extra weight. So a weight vest is really good. You can even just hold on to some dumbbells and do kind of like a farmer's carry type thing too. That's a good option. Circuit training is one of probably the most potent calorie burners. So this would be taking a few different strength exercises like squats and pull-ups and just doing them in a cycle. So you do one exercise and then you do another one, and then you keep doing it all and on with no rest in between. Not only do you get the good strength benefit from those exercises, but you also, on top of that, get your heart rate jacked up the entire time. So you're burning calories through cardio, but you're also getting in some good strength work. And one of the things we do know about losing belly fat and losing fat in general, muscle mass is extremely metabolically active. And because of that, you will literally burn calories at rest doing absolutely nothing if you build some muscle. So that's why circuit training is one of my favorites. Find one or two of these you like, just stick with them. That's going to give you the best long-term results. Don't really overthink it, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's just going to be the one that you stick to and do for a very long period of time. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. We help individuals of all abilities improve their overall knowledge of the gym and become healthier in life. Otherwise, I'm going to link another video talking about calorie counting basics for beginners in the pinned comment of this video that you can check out for yourself. Thanks for watching. We'll